Well, the province announced today it is taking steps to clear the backlog facing the Landlord and Tenant Board with new funding. Well, for more on this announcement, let's bring in the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing of Ontario, Stephen Clark. Thank you so much for joining us, Minister. Let's talk about this investment. Exactly how much money is the province investing, and how is this money going to be used?
Well, it's the largest investment at the Landlord Tenant Board since its inception. There'll be $6.5 million that we're going to be putting into the system. It'll essentially double the amount of adjudicators. We're going to add 40 adjudicators plus some very important administrative staff to help with the caseload. This will do great things to release the backlog. And I think it's a wonderful announcement for both landlords and tenants in the province to be able to deal with landlord and tenant issues, which has been something that I think both sides have been a bit frustrated on.
Well, coming out of the pandemic, no doubt there's been an increase in a lot of these claims at the Landlord and Tenant Board. Do you have any numbers in terms of how extensive the backlog is?
Yeah, I deal with the Residential Tenancies Act, so I'm not privy to the tribunal's caseload, but I know that there is a significant backlog, and essentially the Attorney General this morning at our announcement in London indicated that based on the announcement today, it'll make sure that we deal with some of the backlog. Obviously, we can't give dates, but we're going to work very diligently to ensure that we get those 42 adjudicators and support staff. But it was a great opportunity for us to announce this, plus provide a lot of more changes that will deal with renters, and really a nice balanced package that I think, based on the feedback from the announcement this morning, we've received a lot of accolades from both landlords and tenants.
When it comes to tenants who have been evicted because landlords want to renovate, there's been a lot of issues with, the tenant returning and having their rent increase. How are these changes going to affect that?
Yeah, the issue of renovations, demolitions, and conversions has been an extremely hot topic. And, the RTA, the Residential Tenancies Act, is a bit ambiguous when it comes to, for example, a landlord's own use of a unit. This is when a landlord moves in or a family member moves in. In fact, I asked for a number of cases from the Landlord Tenant Board, and I found that in some cases it wasn't consistent, right? 3 months was enough notice. The next case, 3 months wasn't enough notice. 5 months was adequate. Then 5 months wasn't adequate. So we really had to, as a government, look at what is fair and reasonable. And I think the measures that we've put forward really provide clarity on some of those conversions and renovations. Some people refer to them as renovictions. And I think that, coupled with our amazing announcement on air conditioning, the fact that we're so responsive to the Ontario Human Rights Commission's recommendations, is really a good day for both sides.
Minister, one of the constant complaints we hear is about rent control and the fact that, especially when it comes to new apartments that were created for occupancy after November 15, 2018, that there is essentially a loophole for landlords that they can increase their rent well above, the 2.5% that it is for other households. And now we're dealing with an affordable housing crisis here in the city. And I'm curious, I know that the government is working towards trying to create more affordable housing, but that seems to be one of the big issues that heads towards the Landlord and Tenant Board, is the fact that, for many tenants, they're seeing their rent being jacked up by landlords. Is there any possibility that the government is going to be looking into this loophole, and maybe that might diminish some of these claims that are being brought forth to the Landlord and Tenant Board?
And that's a great question. In November of 2018, the government, we made a conscious decision to remove rent control on new builds for one purpose, and one purpose only, and that was to spur on new purpose-built rental development in Ontario, given the fact that we have had such short supply and there were so few purpose-built rental buildings being built. The result, last year, we had an all-time high in Ontario, a record of 15,000 new purpose-built rental units becoming available for renters in the province. So that's why this bill, or this announcement today, is silent. on that piece because we want to build upon that success. We don't want to stop that record-setting purpose-built rental construction that we saw last year.
When in terms of affordable housing, one of the reasons why it's become so unaffordable in Toronto is the recent numbers are it's $2,500 a month for the average one-bedroom apartment. That's about $30,000 a year, and if an individual is spending upwards of 50% of their take-home income, essentially that would mean someone would have to make around $100,000 a year, and after taxes, that leaves them with $60K. I mean, the average person in the downtown core is probably not making $100,000. So, I mean, how is the province working towards making life a little bit more affordable, especially when it comes to rent prices right now in the city of Toronto?
Yeah, and I think it's all about supply and demand, right? And that's why we have to continue to put policies forward, like we have been as a government, to get more shovels in the ground faster. We need all types of housing. Like, it's not just purpose-built rental. We need missing middle housing. We need housing around transit. We need housing inside the city. We need housing in basically all corners of Ontario. And what we're trying to do as a province is strike that right balance. Obviously, the announcement today was specifically on landlords and tenants, and I think we have struck the balance with all the measures that we put forward today. But at the end of the day, our plans are called housing supply action plans for a reason, and that's because we need to get more types of all shapes, of all sizes, and of all price range. That's what we're trying to do as a government.
Minister Clark, we appreciate your time, and thank you for joining us on CB24.
Thanks again for having me.